Does a plant-based diet actually protect your heart? I mean, we hear it everywhere, right? Just cut out meat and your heart health will absolutely skyrocket. But when we strip away all that health halo marketing and dig into the actual data together, the answer is a whole lot more complex than a simple yes or no. To figure this out, we are unpacking a massive 2021 meta-analysis from Frontiers in Cardiovascular Medicine. In this explainer, we're going to cut right through the diet wars and look objectively at how different variations of plant-based eating actually impact our hearts over the long haul.
Just to wrap our heads around the weight of this research, we have to look at the sheer scale of the data. This wasn't some tiny trial with a dozen people. We're talking about over 410,000 participant records. With a sample size that enormous, it's like zooming out on a giant puzzle. We can finally see patterns that smaller studies completely miss.
And honestly, this is critically important for all of us. Why? Because cardiovascular disease is not just some niche issue. Back in 2019, it accounted for a staggering 32% of all global deaths. It's literally the #1 killer worldwide. So finding out the exact way we should be eating is arguably one of the most pressing challenges in health today. Now, you know how messy nutrition science can be, so the researchers had to do some serious panning for gold. Using a really strict filtering methodology, they took over 600 initial records and distilled them down to just 13 gold standard long-term studies. They completely threw out the noise to focus entirely on broad, lifelong eating habits.
Okay, before we dive into the juicy results, we need a quick stats timeout. The researchers used something called a hazard ratio. Think of it simply as a risk thermometer. If your ratio is exactly 1, your risk is totally neutral. Below 1, awesome, your risk of heart issues drops. Above 1, your risk is going up.
So looking at the big picture first, the news seems incredibly positive. The data showed that sticking to an overall plant-based diet reduced the incidence of cardiovascular disease by 10.2%. We're talking fewer heart attacks, fewer instances of heart failure, and just generally healthier hearts across the board.
And it actually gets better. This overarching plant-based pattern didn't just stop people from getting sick, it actively kept them alive. The data revealed an 8.1% reduction in actual cardiovascular mortality. At a high level, this really seems to validate the whole narrative, right? Eat more plants, live a longer life.
But hold on, because here is the central twist of our whole investigation. The researchers paused and asked a vital question. Do all plant-based diets yield those same great results? Think about it. A French fry is technically a plant. A soda is plant-based. But your heart absolutely does not treat them the same way it treats, say, a bowl of lentils.
To solve this mystery, the researchers ditched the standard labels. Instead of just asking if someone is vegan, which, let's be honest, only tells us what you aren't eating, they used a plant-based dietary index, or PDI. This actually measures the true quality of the plant foods you're putting in your body.
They basically split the data into two totally different universes. On one side, you have the healthful diet, packed with whole grains, veggies, nuts, and legumes. On the other side, the unhealthful diet, loaded with refined carbs, starches, and sugary drinks. Remember, an Oreo might be vegan, but these two diets are worlds apart nutritionally.
And you can clearly see how this plays out in the data. Remember that risk thermometer we talked about? If you map it out, the neutral baseline is right down the middle. We'll notice how the data points for the unhealthful plant diet shift way over to the right. They are planted firmly in the danger zone.
Here is the kicker, and it's a big one. The data definitively shows that eating an unhealthful plant-based diet actually increased cardiovascular mortality by 5% compared to people who barely followed the diet at all. Actually, let that sink in for a second. By eating a diet high in processed plant junk, people literally heightened their risk of dying from heart issues.
But, on the flip side, those who consumed a strictly healthful plant-based diet enjoyed a massive 13% decrease in cardiovascular disease incidence. It wasn't just about avoiding meat, you guys. It was about actively choosing high-quality, whole plant foods. That is where the true cardiovascular magic happens.
So what's happening under the hood here? Biologically, these unhealthful, processed plant foods trigger massive blood sugar spikes and just completely mess with our lipid metabolism, which is how our body processes fats. Because they lack crucial fiber, you might be successfully dodging animal fat, sure, but you're promoting weight gain and wreaking metabolic havoc on your system.
Compare that to the good stuff. Whole plant foods actively protect the heart. They deliver all that crucial fiber, essential plant proteins, and unsaturated fatty acids. But most importantly,
They are jam-packed with antioxidants and natural anti-inflammatories that literally help slow down the plaque buildup in our arteries.
Now, this whole nuance brings up a really fascinating question. How do strict vegetarians actually fare against regular meat eaters in this massive data set? I mean, if simply cutting out meat is the golden ticket, vegetarians should win across every single metric, right?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The meta-analysis found that vegetarians did indeed have a statistically significant 19% lower incidence of cardiovascular disease compared to meat eaters. Honestly, that's a huge win. It's a massive protective benefit against developing heart issues in the first place.
But, and this is a huge but, here is where the label fails us. Simply being a vegetarian did not grant a significant advantage for total stroke risk or overall cardiovascular mortality compared to meat eaters. If your idea of a vegetarian diet is just refined pastas, breads, and sugary drinks, that mortality protection completely vanishes.
Laying it all out side by side, the reality is just undeniable. It's the quality of the plant foods, not the dietary label, that dictates your heart health. Calling yourself a vegetarian just tells us what you aren't eating. It guarantees absolutely nothing about the actual nutritional value of what you are eating. The researchers wrapped up the study with this absolute truth bomb. Importantly, not all plant foods are equally beneficial, but unhealthful refined carbohydrates, added sugars, and oils should be avoided. They firmly established that a diet filled with refined, unhealthful plants is absolutely not a cardioprotective strategy, no matter how clever the marketing is.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to ponder about your own daily habits. Are you eating for a dietary label, or are you eating for the actual quality of your food? I highly encourage you to look past the marketing, look past those rigid categories, and use this data to make truly heart-healthy, high-quality choices for your body.